2019 will reveal so much more.
On today's Edge of Wonder, special guest David Wilcock says, get ready.
We are being promised a treasure trove of new information.
Do tell, David. Anything we've been waiting for?
According to what the briefings have said, the tribunals have now begun.
Well then,
we are actually seeing this happen.
we swear to tell the truth,
There's very exciting stuff going on.
the whole truth,
The scope of these crimes is horrific.
and nothing
This is really, really heavy.
but the truth.
This year, the criminals who run the deep state will be exposed. This is huge, huge information. Do you want to know who they are?
Yeah.
This is explosive stuff. So buckle your seatbelt, here we go.
Edge of Wonder.
Welcome, everybody, to another special episode with our very wonderful guest, Mr. David Wilcock, who's on, I guess this would be our fourth
episode
with David.
Yeah.
It's great having you, David. Thank you for
thanks
joining
so
us.
much. We really appreciate you being here. So we heard that you actually had some special briefings for us, and we're pretty excited.
Well, I don't know if you want to rush right into it without any foreplay, but what the hell, let's just go for it.
Well, we don't have to jump right into it. We can kind of work
I'm
our
ready
way
to
up
go,
there.
David. I'm ready for some world exclusives.
No, there's very exciting stuff going on. Everybody who is working in this category that we've been working in has reason for celebration now, because it does appear, after all this time that the Alliance has been working on the defeat of the cabal, that we are actually seeing this happen. According to what the briefings have said, the tribunals have now begun. So this is huge, huge information, and it does provide an interesting context to why we are currently, at the time of this taping, seeing the longest shutdown of the government in American history, allegedly based over this fight for the border wall, but that seemingly is not the main reason for what's actually happening here.
Yeah, this is very interesting. I mean, this is what a lot of people have been talking about. So like with the shutdown, I mean, there's so many people, like the whole community, Q community, and just wondering, is this really happening? And then you have these letters that were delivered during the Bush funeral.
Right, and then today, for instance, it's really funny when you watch kind of what's happening on the surface. You have like Trump and Nancy Pelosi going back and forth, and there's this like banter going on, right? You kind of look at that and you're wondering, like, is this the whole story? And like, so it's really interesting to hear from you right now with all of this going on, because obviously it's not the whole story. There's more going on behind the scenes.
Well, I told you guys in our previous interview round, because we taped all three of those episodes at once, that we were not getting any briefings at all. I mean, it was a very long dry spell. That has changed as of the beginning of the year. Now, one of the things that I think is really important and you know, we're not the only ones talking about this. This is something that many YouTube channels and many bloggers have been writing about this stuff. But you have this 2018 amendment to the court-martial executive order that was passed. And everybody talks about this thing because it actually justifies the use of military tribunals against people who are not normally military personnel, but are in a position to commit acts of treason against the country. And that document does state that the legal imprimatur for these tribunals to take place begins as of January 1st, 2019. So much like I remember Gulf War I, where January 15th was the deadline, and as a kid in 1991, we didn't know exactly what was going to happen, but then they started bombing Iraq on that very day, like down to the minute, 12:01 a.m. I think is when it started. It seems like it's the same thing, like the actual very day that they were able to start doing these tribunals legally based on the executive order they passed, that's when they actually began.
You know, and what's interesting is that a very similar situation happened in China. I mean, like when Xi Jinping came into power, you know, the old leader Jiang Zemin, he basically had
It was Hu Jintao.
Well, Hu Jintao, but he was still kind of acting
like
under
a proxy.
Yeah, I mean, so in other words, when he came into power, Xi Jinping, realistically, he didn't have any power. The old leader Jiang Zemin and Hu Jintao was just like a pawn, really. Had all his own people in place. So even though he came into power, there was really not much he could do. But slowly, they started to where they were just arresting, I think around over 200,000 officials have now been arrested in China. And a lot of them had ties directly to the persecution of Falun Gong and the underground Christians and whatnot. But on the surface, they just used like corruption, just a general term of corruption or money laundering or whatnot, you know. And then we started seeing it happening in Saudi Arabia with all the princes and everything recently just getting arrested. And this is something Rob and I have been talking about a lot. It's like, when are we going to start seeing it happen over here? And to me, to both of us, this really looks like this is the beginning of it, because they can't come out and use, you know, killing babies, satanic worshiping, and everything else. So it seems like they're going to be using these other aspects of various different things of like tax evasion.
Whatever they can get.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, let's get into the limelight, basically, right?
So, I mean, is that what you think would happen? Like, we're not really going to see these huge, big, massive, horrible crimes, but we'll see these.
Or do you think we're actually going to start seeing these massive crimes?
I don't know. It's anybody's guess. And one of the insider leaks that I wanted to read from directly, and I'll read it off of my computer and you guys can bring the tweet up, is a couple of tweets that came in from the legendary hacker Kim.com. Now, before I read these to you guys, I want to set this story up a little bit. There's a really cool movie you can watch about Kim.com that describes how he was involved in creating Mega Upload, which in the old days there was Napster and there was LimeWire, and this was one of the kind of file sharing sites. And he found a way to monetize that file sharing and ended up getting in a lot of trouble with the big corporate labels for movies and music and so forth. So he's gone through a lot of persecution. He had his house raided, but in the process of having all this, if you will, deep state activity coming at him, he got directly in touch with WikiLeaks. So Kim.com is in a position to know some very incendiary stuff. So I first want to read you a tweet that he made that was very controversial back in February 2018. So let's start with that one now. You guys can bring that one up here.
Stay tuned for more from The Edge.
He said on February 18th, 2018, "Let me assure you, the DNC, Democratic National Committee hack wasn't even a hack. It was an insider with a memory stick. I know this because I know who did it and why. Special Counsel Mueller is not interested in my evidence. My lawyers wrote to him twice and he never replied." And then he says 360 pounds, where he's responding to a Trump that tweet had made. Yeah, a tweet that Trump had made in which he had said something about a 400-pound blogger. So let's look at this quote very carefully. What is he saying here? We're talking about the entire argument that has been used to try to delegitimize Trump winning the 2016, I believe, is the election. Yeah, so it doesn't seem like it's been that long, does it?
No, not at all.
Anyway, this Russia hacking thing, this Russia collusion thing, that was the substance of the whole argument. It's the substance of the Mueller investigation. All we ever hear about is this stuff. And it's really frustrating because, as he's saying in this tweet, this was not Russia. This was somebody within the DNC who had a memory stick and who actually copied the files and gave them to him, gave them to Kim.com, And Mueller doesn't want the information. Mueller is supposed to be trying to get to the bottom of this thing, but he doesn't care about the real evidence. And of course, as I'm sure you guys have covered this story, there's a lot of evidence that suggests that the person who got that stick was Seth Rich, and he then died under very, very suspicious circumstances, to say the least. So we can discuss that, but first I want to get up to date with the tweets that Kim.com has just made, the first one on January 5th, 2019, because this guy, probably more than anybody else on Earth, is in a position to know what WikiLeaks is going to do, how they're going to do it, when they're going to do it, and this is explosive stuff. So buckle your seatbelt, here we go.
All right, we are ready.
January 5th, 2019, Kim.com. I smile every day watching the aftermath of preventing Hillary. Deep state, exposed. Fake news, exposed. Department of Justice and FBI, exposed. I am happy that you are more informed than ever. 2019 will reveal so much more. Get ready for the next round of leaks. Monumental stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
When did you write that again?
January 5th, 2019.
So this is brand new.
Yeah.
That's public. So look, you can't get a better leak than that. You can't get a better insider than that right now. Somebody who's already proven his bona fides in the public eye. We know who this dude is. We know he's got direct connections to WikiLeaks. It's even talked about in the movie about him to some degree. You can't get a much more credible source than this. And what is he saying? He is saying that 2019 will be monumental and that we will learn much, much more. Now, let's just hold on a second, because all of the really upsetting stuff that has launched this whole movement that's led to incredible censorship on YouTube, on Twitter, on Facebook, you know, you're just getting blocked. You can't even say these terms anymore. You know, we're all kind of like in this fight or flight or freeze mode, you know, and right now we're kind of in freeze, like, wow, you can even say this word that starts with a P and rhymes with hate, and just saying the word, they're scanning for that, right? Audio and in writing. And if you say that word, then you could lose your channel, you could lose your page, and they've been banning pages on Facebook that have like millions of followers, right?
And one thing to note is, why censor people for using that word if it's not real? Like, people need to think this through, right? All the mainstream media are being like, oh, you're crazy if you think this, you're crazy if you think this, you're crazy if you think this. Then why censor it? There would be no reason to do this.
But to kind of answer that from like a devil's advocate perspective, right? It's because you're spreading fake news.
Well, that's what they say, or it's hate speech or something. But come on, like.
But I mean, really, yeah. I mean, but it's okay if you talk about, you know, killing Trump on YouTube, and you know, it's okay. But as soon as you say pizza, it's like, oh, that's bad.
Well, hey, you said it, I didn't. So if this video gets taken down, it's your fault. It's on your back now.
Don't worry, we have ways of muting Ben for dropping the word he wasn't supposed to. We're supposed to say donkey gate.
Yeah, or pizza fence. That's what we've been sometimes calling it.
Well, look, guys, as you know, the scope of these crimes is horrific, and I get it. A lot of people, it's much, much more fun to attack the messenger than to accept that the message might be true. So you kind of have to cut these people a little bit of slack who are working for these social media giants, in that they don't want to believe that this stuff is true. They can't fathom that this is true. And so in their mind, perhaps they feel that they are helping us by stopping the spread of this upsetting information that radicalizes people and prevents us from really understanding the truth. But there's a really big problem with this, which is, how can we survive in a society where our Constitution guarantees us the freedom to assemble, the freedom of speech? How can we legitimize corporate giants who are only interested in profit and in furthering their brand and in gathering all our information and surveilling everything that we do? How can we be okay with them completely leapfrogging over the rule of law, elected government officials, and to start to decide that they are going to become our censors. That is fascism. That is a corporate-controlled dictatorship, and it's not appropriate.
Do you wonder?
Yeah, and I think part of the problem is too, is there, on the other side, people are saying, see, your capitalism isn't working, and therefore we need to have something like communism because, you know, because look what's happening to our society. The companies are gaining everything and we're losing. And one thing that we're really trying to clarify in our videos is that, these are the people lobbying in the government, these big corporations, and they have their agenda, right? We covered like the Committee of the 300, and recently, like on Jimmy Church, I heard you talking about various different corporations. I mean, they're all making this money off of the people. It's like on the surface, they look like they're promoting capitalism, but it seems when we start really digging into this and doing our research, their goal is really to push communism. They want people to think that capitalism isn't working, or the whole plan of the deep state is to really bring communism in our society. I mean, that's what they've been pushing so much.
And the ironic part of that is that when you do that, it is still the same group of people that are benefiting at the end of the day, because at the end of the day, there's still someone on that throne that's making choices with all of these things, and then everyone else is completely leveled out. So you've lost your property, you've lost your personal freedoms, you're fed, you're clothed, and if they don't like you, that's it. It's over pretty much, right? So it's just, there's a very bizarre thing going on. And to your point before, with these topics, it's like when you start censoring people like they're doing, right? On the surface, like you said, it looks like, oh, they're protecting us. But you nailed it. It's like, we have to have a society where when someone makes a claim as big as this, that we can talk about it. I mean, holy heck, if this is true, if kids are being treated this way, if people are being treated this way, and these social media apparatuses have censored that, I mean, who's going down? I mean, really, at the end of this, who's going down? I mean, that's like such a serious thing, right?
Absolutely. And so when I'm referring you guys back to this Kim.com quote, let's be clear that the entirety of that discussion that has led to all of these videos and all of these blogs and all of these people speaking out about child trafficking, about human trafficking, about Satanism, okay? Those things all were triggered by a WikiLeaks data dump of emails that happened in the immediate weeks before the election actually happened. So Kim.com is sitting on top of a mountain of existing data. They have looked at how the entire world has responded to this. He's aware of the censorship. He's aware of the information. He's aware of what we have learned. So then when he actually says here, 2019 will reveal so much more. Deep state exposed, fake news exposed. This is really, really heavy. We're not looking at anything that you could play off as if it's not a big deal. He is prognosticating data dumps and information leaks that will dwarf anything that we've seen before, which is why he says monumental stuff. So I really want to just underline that and bold that and make it clear that as we head into this new year, we are being promised a treasure trove of new information. Now, the scope of that information apparently includes this idea that tribunals are actually underway, that arrests have already been made, that people are already on trial. The intel includes the fact that there are apparently several locations in the US where these sealed indictments are already being unsealed, where people are getting picked up, they're getting brought in, they're being put on trial, and they are receiving their sentences. And so we're hearing inside reports about all these boats that are going to Guantanamo. We have reports about Guantanamo being completely overhauled. that they're rebuilding it. They're building all these new facilities there. So this is really incredible stuff.
So like, yeah, recently Trump, there was a bunch of things where Trump approved, I think it was like $200 million to add on and fix and build up Guantanamo Bay. And so that was this big question, like why, you know, if they were supposed to, like I think Obama's plan was eventually to shut it down and not use it anymore. But then it's like, why are we putting all this money into it and fixing it up and doing and adding more to it if it's not, or who are they expecting to bring in? That's the question that I'm kind of raising, I guess, you know, and more for the audience out there to think about, you know.
All right, so while we're on this topic, because there's a lot of things that I'm hoping we can cover here, I want to read you the next Kim.com tweet, which happened on the same day, January 5th, 2019, because these two really need to be seen side by side. So if you're ready, let's hit you with that one. January 5th, 2019, Kim.com. This year, the criminals who run the deep state will be exposed. The shareholders profiting from war and chaos. The billionaires who turn democracy into an illusion. They own politicians, judges, and all your data. They are the biggest pirates in history. Do you want to know who they are?
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do. And he said, get ready, it's going to be monumental stuff. So this is super exciting. It's anybody's guess what's going to happen. Now, let's talk about the next thing.
So, knowing David Wilcock, the next thing could be anything. The movies, or AI, or both, and more. Tune in for part 2 of more unbelievable truth bombs dropped straight on you from the one and only David Wilcock, right here on the Edge of Wonder. Radio face says, radio face. Sweet. I like it when David drives, then I don't miss anything. Hey, you want to hand me a soda out of the cooler? You seen my shades? Let's roll. Bam, how's that, huh? Woo, not many bloopers in there.